We are moving right along, as my dad would say, in the knife build series from concept to cutting edge, where I'm taking you on a step-by-step process that I follow when making a knife. Now, I want to reiterate to you guys, like I have in the past, I'm not a professional knife maker. I am a hobbyist. Done a bunch of research, checked out some videos, and looked at a couple of different books that I had lying around, and basically, through my own investigation, figured out how to make a knife. And I've made quite a few over the past year, and I've been really happy with the results. For the most part, everything's come back successful. The couple of times I wasn't too happy with the results, I still walked away learning something. I've been sharing that journey with you guys. I've been posting videos all along the way, and you keep asking me a ton of great questions, and the overall response, fantastic. I really appreciate it. What I've decided to do, based on your requests, is take each section of the build and break it down step by step for you guys. So far in this process, we've come up with our design and made a technical drawing. We took that technical drawing and turned it into a template. And now it's time to take this template over to our steel and get cutting. So let's stick around. Wait. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. I know we're all excited to start cutting on steel and grinding and shaping and turning out our first knife. But before we do that, there is one step that we really need to talk about. It's critical, it's important, and it's probably the most important topic throughout this entire build. And it's one most people tend to forget. I know when I was learning and when I was trying to find out information, it was really hard and really daunting to try to get particulars about this specific topic. So I'm going to take and do my best to try to explain to you exactly what it is I found out when it comes to steel selection. We're going to be figuring out how to choose the right steel for our job. When I was trying to build a knife, the first one I did was out of mild steel. I then went and I joined some forums and been on a few sites and looked around, and everywhere you look you see 1095, 01 tool steel, you see stainless steel, depending on what what you're looking at. And after a while you start thinking, okay, I'm going to build my knife, I'm going to use this or I'm going to use that. And really, at the end of the day, if you think about it, it's really the knife maker's responsibility to provide the tool. It's the consumer's responsibility to buy what's going to work for them. That doesn't mean the consumer is free of any obligation to do their own research. It just simply means that the knife maker should be building tools with materials that are going to work best for the task designed for that tool. And what does that mean? Does that mean that you don't have to worry about it, that when you go buy a knife you should walk in there and if it's all messed up it's the maker's fault? Yeah, a little bit. If you walk in there and grab a knife and you go out to the woods and start using it as an axe, is it your responsibility? Yeah, a little bit. It's a two-way street here. So what I'm going to try to do in an effort to better define, or rather better explain the steels, is just do a quick overview. Now, I need to tell you guys, I'm not a metallurgist, I'm not a chemist, I'm not a blacksmith, or any of that stuff. I just did research. I went on the internet, I looked at everywhere I could find, I checked in some books, I even called a few steel distributors and got their take on the various types of steels and knives. And I gotta tell you, some of the information I found was a bit interesting. And to that point, let me share something with you. I was working with an individual who wanted to get a certain type of knife, and they were asking for two types of steel. They wanted knife type A, and they were looking for either this or that, and they were firm in their decision with that. But I started doing some research. I kept asking why these two steels, because they were a bit different from one another. It's not like he was choosing between two items of almost exact similarity. There were two different types of steels altogether with two very different sets of property. Now, that got me curious, and that actually got me doing a little investigation, and that's why I started making calls and doing research. Well, one of the things that I found out is when you're making steel, there are a lot of different good options for making knives. You're not stuck with 1095. You're not stuck with 5160. You don't have to go to 01 tool steel or A2 or whatever. You're not stuck with any one specific type. The question is, what are you going to do with that knife? Let's say you're making a knife and you're going to use it for filleting fish. Do you really need 1095 steel or 1084 steel? No. You might want to try stainless steel. Do you need to be able to split wood? Well, now you're looking maybe at a tool steel. But do you also want to be able to do fine carving? Okay, well then that brings up another possibility. At the end of the day, it's not a clear-cut answer. You can't, and I don't think that there's a knife maker out there that's going to say, I'm using 1095, that's it, that's all there is to it, it's not going to happen, no two ways about it, anything else sucks, because it's simply not true. There's a lot of options out there today. I'm going to try to provide you some information today to help make that decision. The types of steels. There are two types of steels that people look at. You have stainless steel and you have high carbon steel. That's the basic things that you're going to look at. When you're looking at stainless steels, there are a handful of properties. The properties of stainless steel, and again, this is not all the properties, this is just some basic information. The biggest advantage, it's resistant to any kind of rust and corrosion. It's not to say it can't, it's just extremely resistant. It has a very beautiful finish, there's no doubt about that. It can be a little bit more expensive because of the chemical makeup in the steel itself. Heat treating is a lot trickier. It's a little bit more complex to heat treat a stainless steel blade than it is to heat treat a regular blade. As I understand it, it needs to be done in an oxygen-free environment, and sometimes that can be a little bit tricky to accomplish. It doesn't hold an edge quite like a high carbon steel knife. It can get sharp, very sharp, easy enough. Just don't expect that edge to last 100 years. And one of the more common types of stainless steel you hear people talk about are 440C. And again, those are just very high-level points when you're talking about stainless steel. There's chemical composition, there is the various thicknesses that you can get into, there is a myriad of other information. But those are some things to keep in mind when you want to select a high carbon steel versus a stainless steel. Carbon steel. All right, let's go over some of the properties of carbon steel. Very susceptible to rust and corrosion. Much longer edge retention, much harder blade. That extra high carbon content in there makes it really good when you're using it with a metal match or a ferro rod, whatever you want to call it. Some of the more common types used are the 01 tool, 5160s, and 1095s. High carbon steel has a lot of advantages, but it also has, as I said, some disadvantages. So it's a give and a take. If somebody walked up to you and said, what superpower do you want, flight or strength, one or the other? There's advantages to both and there's disadvantages to both. There are pros and cons to both steels, and the bottom line question is, what's the intended use? What are you going to do with it? What type of environment are you going to be doing it in? And what are your metal needs? It's all going to be based on you. Now, I'm not telling you that you have every bit of information in here you'll ever need to make an educated decision about what type of steel to use. Just some things to consider and things to think about. When you're making a steel choice, you've got to ask yourself what you're doing. One interesting fact that I picked up on and then got confirmed in a conversation with a very popular steel distributor was that one of the things that drives the popularity of steels, believe it or not, is the availability of that steel. So if I'm a knife maker and I'm trying to make whatever type of blade I want, and I want to get a high carbon steel blade, I have a lot of choices. And if I'm ready to build 10, 15, 20, 30, or 100 knives and stick them on my shelves and start selling them, and I call the supplier and I can't get what I want, there are other options for me, and I'm going to select those other options. When I am selecting steel for a knife, I'm always looking for a high carbon steel knife. I don't mind taking care of that knife. I don't mind making sure the edge is clean. I'm making sure the blade is clean, it's treated, it's taken care of. I know that a high carbon steel knife is going to hold an edge for me. I know it's going to be there sharp whenever I need it. But that doesn't mean I don't think stainless steel has a place. Stainless steel has a big place. There's a lot of applications for a stainless steel knife. I just don't happen to be building those types of knives at the moment. That's not to say I won't. I'm just currently not. So what did I choose for this knife? So far the knives I've been making have been made out of 5160. And I've got a good design here. I've actually got three. Let me show you what I got here. I've got this one. I've got this one, which is a very similar knife, different blade, as you may or may not be able to tell. And then I've got this one, kind of a tactical / combat knife type of a thing, camp knife. It can be used for both, actually. And I've got two different steels that I'm working on. I've got some 1/4-inch 5160 that I'm going to use to make this. The individual is looking for something rugged, hardcore, and he wants an all-natural handle. I'm probably going to put some kind of a nice dark, maybe walnut or something handle on it. As far as this one is concerned, same thing. I'm going with an all natural. I got something special designed for this. I cannot talk about it as of right now because that knife has a special destination and purpose, but you will see more about that, I assure you. And then this one, I'll be making, basically I think I'm going to go with, again, an all natural, a wood handle on this as well. In any event, this one and this one are going to be made out of 1084 carbon steel, a little bit thinner. I believe, what's the thickness I've got written down for that? 4 millimeters. So it's not going to be too terribly thick, but it'll still be able. It's a little bit thicker than a lot of the other ones you see, but it's not too terribly thick. I didn't want to go a full 1/4 inch. It'll be about that thick. So anyway, guys, that about covers most of what I wanted to talk to you today on regarding steel selection. Just don't be bullied into making popular selections just because they look popular in social media, on forums, or what have you. That is not to say that the ones that are popular are not good. I am not making that claim. There are pros and cons to every steel. All I'm simply saying is if you're making a knife, don't run out and say, Billy uses tool steel or Sally uses 1095, whatever it is, and just think that's what you have to do. Don't limit yourself to just what you've seen other people do. Do a little research, do a little investigation, and you'll see all these different types of steel, the carbon steels that are out there. Man, I didn't even scratch the surface to what's out there. Again, a tool steel is going to be very, very good for, think of it, tool steel, for tools. They're very good for durability, for ruggedness. They're going to last. They're going to really hold tight good. They'll take a good edge. They'll hold a good edge. And to the end user, probably be perfectly fine. 1095 steel is very hard and very strong. With that comes a little bit of compromise because, like I said, that heat treating process, it's very testy with heat treating. If you don't do it 100% right, you're going to pop tips. You're going to crack blades. It's just going to happen. You're less likely to have that with a tool steel. Now, why did I go with 1084? 1084 is the baby brother to 1095, so to speak. That's how it was explained to me. That's not my assessment of what it is. Research that I found online, talking with the vendors, or rather the steel suppliers, basically 1084 is to 1095 as Pyrodex is to black powder. Both of them will achieve the same exact result, one of them, Pyrodex, being much more stable than black powder. 1084 will heat treat very well. It's very receptive to heat treat. I'm comfortable heat treating 1084 in my backyard because it's the window of opportunity to fail is a little bit broader on 1095. It's like trying to think of it, as trying to throw thread through the eye of a needle. That's how sharp it has to be. You're talking a guy with an electric kiln that's computer controlled and everything is set with perfectly so it gets done right. I'm not doing that. I'm doing my own heat treating here. I don't have that kind of equipment. I'm doing it old school, so I need something that's a bit more forgiving. Now, does that mean 1084 is worse than 1095? Absolutely not. Does it mean it's better? Again, absolutely not. Let me paraphrase from more than one source. The end user will not see or realize the difference between a 1084 and a 1095 steel knife. Unless they take it out and have it professionally analyzed, most people will have no idea what the difference is. As a craftsman, as somebody that's going to be providing the knife, I'd rather use the 1084, something more forgiving, and you're still going to have the same result. So, again, these are just my humble opinions based on very limited research that I've done. It's not like I took a year and a half out of my life to become an expert in metallurgy. I've just done some research, asked some questions, and came up with some information. As is the case with all my videos, you know me, I'm the homemade genius. I'm not claiming to be a genius, just brave enough to step out of my box and try something new. This is a community. If you're out there and you've got some info on steel and steel selections or anything, with the Google Plus changes, you can really get in and really explain yourself now. You're not limited to a handful of characters to try to get your point across. We really want to hear from you. I really want to hear from you. If you know something that I've left out that you think is critical, if I've misspoken in any way, or if I don't understand my facts properly, please correct me. I want to know. I want to be sure that the viewers who watch this see this, listen to this, hear this part, and go scrolling through the comments to try to find updates and information. I want to hear from you. Again, that about sums it up, guys. The next thing on the list is to start scratching out some steel, and that is coming in the next video, I promise. I just wanted to introduce this little section because I felt like it's important. So once again, thank you for your views. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the video. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. Follow me on Facebook. I've got 2 channels over there, links down below, The Homemade Genius as well as Primal Edge and Leatherworks. That's where you could find more pictures and knife porn, as well as some other gear and equipment that I provide for my outdoor shop. So that about sums it up. Almost done. A couple more things to do. Thanks, guys. Genius out. To the consumer, they think this must be the bee's knees of steel. Yeah, I said bee's knees. You heard me right. Don't rewind it. I said bee's knees. Let's move on.